Hello, everyone. It's 2024. Welcome to Growing Up with Godzilla again. My name is Donny Winter, and this is my show where I have conversations with Godzilla fans about how they've grown with the character and franchise over time. And holy crap, it's season 3. Did not see this coming, but here we are, and I'm pretty excited. And I'm just going to be honest, like this season is going to have a lot of really cool things, great conversations with great people, some familiar faces returning, some new faces appearing. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. And hopefully we might get some representation at G Fest this year, aka I plan on going to G Fest this year. That's what I mean by that. And this also marks episode 50 of the show, which like mind blown right now. So to celebrate that and to celebrate, this individual's successes, I have chosen to invite my dear friend Jacob Lyngle of Kaiju United back to reappear. Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm great. I'm back. I have a new setup. Things are looking great. I am super stoked to be here.
Your setup is absolutely beautiful and stunning, and I need to step it up because that looks great.
It's so much better than a laptop camera in the office. Like we have like an office setup now, and it's so great. New webcam. Like I couldn't be more happy.
Just checking off all the boxes. No, it's really good to have you back. I know we've actually had this plan for quite some time because we talk regularly.
Totally.
I'm very I would say that Growing Up with Godzilla is definitely connected to and associated with Kaiju United, which is the site that you have co-created, right? And
Yes.
You've been so wonderful to me over the past couple of years. So thank you so much for all that you've done and, being a support system for Growing Up with Godzilla. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Of course. I created the site to be a outlet for the community, whether that's a platform for people that aren't getting that platform or just interesting and unique individuals in the community. And there's no crazy like contract weird stuff going on. It's just like you want it on the site. Okay, let's do it. And I think that's it's been a fun model.
Absolutely. And truthfully, I would say that our fandom has lacked that outlet. So I know that I'm grateful for that, and I know that many other people are grateful for that as well. So okay, so speaking of Kaiju United, let's talk that. Like, it has grown so much in the last year. Tell me about all the successes. What's been going on?
Oh my goodness. It has been the craziest year of my life just in terms of what we're doing. Like I would not let's backtrack a little bit because I'm stumbling a little bit. So the biggest example I would bring up is if you told me the first time we talked that I don't know when that episode came out, a couple months later, I'd be talking to some of the cast from Monarch Legacy of Monsters and collaborating with Apple, that I would have been like, you're crazy, dude. We're just a random little guy. That ain't gonna happen. But lo and behold, we got some nice press for Monarch, and I deeply, deeply thank Chris from Toho Kingdom because he's the guy that kind of gave us that.
Chris, we adore you.
Such a rad guy.
I'm working on Chris to get Chris on here at some point. It'll hopefully will happen sometime. We'll see. But anyway, continue.
But yeah, I mean, like, I work directly with like All Monsters Attack Convention, and I programmed their entire Chicago show's panels, and then I did 2 guest interviews. It's just been absolutely crazy. Like, I've been talking to G Fest about what we want to do with them for this year's show. Spoilers, still in development, but when I approached them, I kind of wrote out who I was and what we do. And my examples of people I've talked to, like just in this year alone, I've talked to like 6 suit actors from Japan at these conventions. All those interviews on the site. I'm like, just in year 1? Like, how do I top that? And I really struggled for a minute because we kind of went on a little hiatus for the holidays. And lo and behold, I kicked off this year with what became our biggest interview ever, which was Barry from Barry's Temple of Godzilla, which I was very
Oh,
surprised to see.
yes. And if you've not gone and read that interview, everyone, go check it out. It's absolutely phenomenal. And for those of you who lived on the interwebs, especially between like what the early 2000s to like 2015, like Barry's Temple of Godzilla was like a centerpiece in online Godzilla fandom life. So I could not think of a better site to have facilitated that interview than Kaiju United. So I think from what you've discussed so far, you've demonstrated that the name has been getting out there, right? People are seeing it, it's making an influence. And the truth is, I that's what makes people gravitate to the site, right? People see
Yeah,
that it's inclusive, creates great content, is open-minded and willing to work with artists, writers, etc., large companies, etc., right? So like it's checking off all the boxes.
yeah, and I think two more words we could use right there are transparent, because you guys, unless I'm like sneakily doing stuff like the Barry interview and I don't tell you till it's out, we're pretty transparent about who we are, who's on the site. We have that huge list of contributors. You can see exactly who's doing stuff for us. And I forgot the second word, but transparency. And the second word I just remembered is approachability.
Yeah. Oh, that's a
So,
good one. That's a really good
so
one.
yeah, so anyone can come to us, and I guess audition isn't the right word, but pitch is the right word.
Yeah.
So
Well, and the thing is, like, you do go through a process where you like look at things, you review things and everything, like any site does.
mhm.
But that approachability factor is important because I'm speaking from the perspective of a writer slash artist, right? Like, it's very terrifying to put your work out there for many people, especially for those who don't have a lot of exposure or experience. So, like, it's refreshing to be able to work with somebody who is flexible and approachable like that. So,
Yeah, for sure. And I know that sometimes we'll publish community writers that aren't like George R. R. Martin or Tolkien or something, and that's not a diss on any of them. Sometimes people just write for fun, and that's fine. That's a
mhm.
creative outlet. People draw for fun. But my mantra was, I recall a story because there was this magazine long ago called Famous Monsters of Filmland. I'm sure everyone's heard of it.
Mm.
But the editor in chief, Forrest J. Ackerman, got a letter from a young writer who submitted his short story, and his name was Stephen King. And he was a young kid who just wrote his like first story and was like, Forrest, can you publish this? And it was Stephen King.
There you
Maybe I'm
go.
not trying to say we're going to find the next Stephen King, but maybe we can be a developmental place for these writers to hone their skills and to develop into professionals so that they can maybe one day go write for the big boys and cover Sundance Film Festival. And then they could say, hey, Kaiju United gave me their start.
That is such a wonderful perspective. I love that. And you never know what could happen. You never know. Like at the end of the day, this is all networking, and I think that
For
Kaiju
sure.
United allows for that networking to take place. And for I think it's really difficult, especially these days, for sites to break through the threshold of like social media, right? Because if we look at a lot of the like older classic sites, many of them have gone defunct, mine included, Kaiju Galaxy, unfortunately. Um, but like Kaiju United has like really broken through that threshold and has created a presence for itself, which I think is great because you just see the community growing and growing and growing.
And it could be because we did the opposite. I mean, I started the group in 2020. We just had the 4-year anniversary of the Facebook group. But then we went, hey, I mean, if I'm going to be really honest and transparent,
Go for
I
it.
thought I had a thought, and I was like, man, I really think Facebook is going to become MySpace one day. I know it's buku bucks and it's way bigger than MySpace ever was, but it's like digital media. Anything could happen. The example I'd think of is the Machinima channel on YouTube that had all that gaming stuff
Mm-hmm.
that had hundreds of millions of views, and then the company went bankrupt and everything was lost.
Yeah.
So I wanted to find a way for the community that we created with this group to have a more permanent home and survive if anything crazy happened, because a lot of these communities are still on Facebook groups and that's it. So what happens if Facebook goes down, or
Yeah.
the company just gets rid of Facebook and they make a new site? I guess we could all move over to the new site, but with kaijuunited.com, we're not really going anywhere. So
But without spreading out, then there would be that risk of like, oh, we could lose that community, right? So,
mhm.
oh my goodness. So obviously, we're all brought together because of Godzilla, right? Well, and Toku in general, but Godzilla Minus One has been flourishing over the last few months. It just received an Oscar nomination, Godzilla's first ever Oscar
Crazy.
nomination, and for visual effects
Deserved.
too, right? Like, which is amazing because let's be honest, Godzilla has had a long history of like people making fun of the franchise for its effects, and bam, now it's getting an Oscar nomination for visual effects. Your
Indicating.
reactions, your
Yes.
reactions to that.
So my first reaction was vindicating. I was like, exactly what you just said. I was like, finally, some prestigious, nice nomination for this amazing, incredible film. And I love Minus One. I
Me
mean,
too.
most people do. It's a pretty united, I guess, consensus. And but I felt really proud of the film. Whoa, I'm shaking a little bit. I felt really proud of the movie because just because it was a small team of 35 people, including director Yamazaki, and they all did the effects for the film, and the effects look amazing.
They
And
do.
part of my heart misses classic tokusatsu because I'm Showa shill. I am a Showa fanboy. All Godzilla's okay, no matter what you love, just love it. But I love Showa, so I missed that a little bit. But I will say the shot where it's not a bomb, but it's a mine. The
Hmm.
mine goes into his mouth, and he's like this. My camera's flipped, so I got to do this right. So the mine goes into his mouth like that, and you see the water going through his teeth. That looked real. That was some really good
It
CGI.
looked so visceral. Like it looked so good. And it was terrifying too, which I think really was the icing on the
Yes.
cake.
Yeah,
But
Godzilla was genuinely scary, and it was. I just loved the movie. I've seen it 5 times. Not the
you have
record.
me beat. I've only seen it 3 times.
Our contributor Nick Christensen, who is also in Utah like I am, has seen it 28 times. That dude is crazy. So
Wow.
if anyone out there has beat Mr. Christensen, let me know, because I
Oh
think
my
he's
goodness.
got the
Well,
record.
there's the box office success right there. Like, there you go.
Actually, our other contributor, Elijah Thomas, might have that record. We'll see. I don't actually know how many
I
times.
do remember hearing Elijah mentioning that he had seen it many times.
So thank you, Nick
Oh.
and Elijah, for the box office success of Godzilla Minus One.
Had it not been for you two, where would we be? I love it. So, okay, so panning out and thinking back on Godzilla just a little bit. So, I guess, I mean, obviously the show focuses on how we've grown as a fan over the years. So, I guess when it comes to your own experiences, what has changed for you as a Godzilla fan over those years? Like perspectives, impressions of the character, etc.
So as a kid, Godzilla was very much along the lineup of my favorite characters. I'd have the figures, and I would put Godzilla, Optimus Prime, the Incredible Hulk, Spider-Man. They'd be all together in like a cool super team because Godzilla was a superhero. Because I watched
Mm.
Godzilla versus Gigan and Godzilla versus Megalon pretty much the most. I think Tokyo SOS was number 3. So I hold that film very dearly, as I mentioned previously when we talked.
A good selection.
So Godzilla went from being my childhood hero and obsession to something a little deeper because as a teenager, I started watching art movies like Kurosawa films and Seven Samurai. So I started appreciating the artistic nature of Godzilla films and just really what went into making these movies. But now with the site, like I have to say, a lot of everything I do with Godzilla now is for the community because I have cultivated all of these friendships, relationships, bonds through. I've been in the Godzilla fandom since 2011. Not nearly as long as some of you other guys, but
some of us ancient
weird.
relics over here.
I went to my first G-Fest when I was 14, and I'll be 26 this year. You know, I'm not an old man by any stretch, but that's a long time. Yeah, that's a long time to be in the community. I've been running groups and Facebook communities that whole time, and it's just been everything I do at this point. Like with the site, it's really just given back to the community that has embraced me, that has seen me grow into a man. And I just, that's kind of where it's all kind of led to. But also Godzilla's my old buddy. You know, I'll go see a Godzilla movie and love it regardless. Like I'm going to go see Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire, and see my old buddy, you know, fight with a monkey. And it's going to be fun.
Excited. I'm so excited.
So I'm not a hard pleaser with Godzilla movies. It's just, it's Godzilla, man. It's pretty simple.
I love that it's just shifted for you into community building, right? And I would argue, like, I would personally argue, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this has become like a crucial creative outlet for you too. Like that community building component, like creating content within that community, like that's, I mean, to me, it sounds like it's enriching for you.
It is. I spend a little bit too much time doing stuff. Like I'll just sit and see if I can fix the homepage and make it better, even though like the homepage is fine, Jacob. Like there's not much to fix.
That's what we do. We're always tinkering. We are tinkering around.
I'm always tinkering. I'm always finding ways to display things better. So like as we went into the new year, I totally just revamped and remodeled the gallery on the site. The podcast page is redone. I like making
which you can find Growing Up with Godzilla on there, by the way, everyone.
Yes. This episode you can find on there sometime soon. But just stuff like that. And then like I've kind of become the interview guy for the site. Like I do most of the news drops and interviews and press. So part of me misses just writing stuff, kind of like Elijah and Nathan, our latest contributors, do. So I really want to get back to writing stuff, but I don't know. I think the interviews are fun because I get to know people better, and they do really well. For if you know, I'm not going to share the stats publicly, but the interviews are kind of what people are coming to Kaiju United for, and if that's where we're going, that's okay.
Hey, you know what? That's what we love. That's what we love. So I have another interesting, very deeply philosophical, cerebral question for you. Now, I always think about like who we are now versus who we used to be a long time ago, right? Again, like that's another way we can kind of like unpack the characters, the films a little bit more, right? Through our lenses that we have as we, you know, navigate life. So if you could go back in time to your younger self, what valuable wisdom from the Godzilla franchise would you impart to baby Jacob?
Oh man.
I don't mess around when it comes to questions.
From the movies, I think hey, let's talk about Minus One a little bit. I love the themes in Minus One. I think to me, it could be summed up with the indomitable human spirit, We will
Mm.
continue, no matter what, to survive and fight. As the tagline of the film is, we will continue to get back up. Even when Godzilla wrecks Ginza, there's still hope, and we can still come together in the face of a tragedy, a national disaster, the passing of a loved one, just any of those things. We can
Mhm.
still come together and find peace and acceptance, and I wouldn't say move on, but more
Healing.
so heal. Yes.
Yeah.
So that really hit me with minus one, that part of it. And unfortunately, we did lose Satsuma-san
Yes.
in December, shortly after that film came out. But the coming together that the community really did when I went around asking for everyone's statements really spoke to me as well, because it showed the power of community for one, but two, it really showed that people can really bond and come together when it's time to heal, when we need to
Mm.
heal together, if that makes sense.
No, like healing together, that's extremely important. I definitely felt that when I watched Minus One as well, because like I just think that the human narrative was so central to everything that it carried the film. Like, don't get me wrong, the visual effects are phenomenal. Like everything else is
Uh,
great.
yeah,
But
it's
that
a lovely Godzilla movie, but as you were
like
saying,
I think that's why because I remember, okay, so in my 3 times of watching it, the first time I watched it just for the sheer entertainment, the second time I watched it to sob in the theater by myself, and then the third time I watched it was with my fiance. So the second time when I like sobbed in the theater myself, like I was just like at the end of the film, I'm just like crying over the main character's healing, like realizing that like for me, like the war never felt over, but now it does feel over. And like to me that was one of the strongest mental health narratives that I've ever seen. So I that really like just like that healing component is important. Like healing is not meant to be an easy process.
oh no,
But it can get better once you navigate through it, right? And it's something that we're always being vigilant about.
yeah, and I mean, even with the film's ending, and we'll probably put a time skip in here if you haven't seen the movie for some reason, but I'm going to talk about the ending.
Yeah, spoiler warning,
So,
everyone.
yes. So at the end, um, I forget her name. I'm really bad with names. She survives, right? And our pilot protagonist discovers her in the hospital, miraculously alive, but there's something growing right here on her, and my interpretation is that it's just radiation sickness, because a
Mhm.
lot of victims, unfortunately, we have to have this conversation. A lot of victims of the atomic blast survived the blast, but they died days later. A lot of victims at Chernobyl, they got exposed to radiation, died weeks, months later of acute radiation sickness. So even if we conquer um, the terror and the fear now, there's always a Godzilla that will come back, and I think that's what was the maybe perhaps the intention of Yamazaki-san with the message behind that. It is kind of a Godzilla's going to come back, and he's going to have another movie, but I think
Mhm.
deeper than that, it's another disaster will come, another
Yeah.
tragedy will come, another Godzilla will come, and we will have to figure out how to accomplish surviving it and healing again.
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
think it's a tragic ending, but leaves you with hope at the very end
Yeah.
of it all.
That's a really powerful way of putting it. Absolutely. What was the second thing that you would go back and tell your younger self?
Um, it gets better. It gets better, and maybe that that ties right into what I just said, but in a different way. When I was a kid, I loved Godzilla. All my poster board projects at school were Godzilla related. I was that kid. And I got a lot of flack for it, as many of us did. But now I'm doing the website, I'm going to Chief Fast. I have found people like me that love this stuff wholeheartedly. So, A, it gets better because you're going to find people that are like you. You're going to find people that embrace you, and you're going to find your community.
Yeah.
And also, hey, people that gave me flack for Godzilla back in the day went and saw King of the Monsters, went and saw Minus One, and they raved about how great it was. So I could, instead of going back and going, oh, I told you, I went, I'm really glad you see what I see now.
Now when people make fun of Godzilla or they give me flack for it, I'm like, do you have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame? Do you have an Oscar nomination? Like,
Yeah,
who are
I do.
you? Oh, but I like to be petty, so who am I?
There's a lot of people that have stars on Walk of Fame, Donny. Some of them might not be the best of humankind, but
do we deserve a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, Jacob? I think we do.
I'm just a guy.
Oh, stop. Okay, so making things a little bit more lighthearted for the moment, which largely unpopular Godzilla film is your guiltiest pleasure?
I would say so. Godzilla's Revenge is the easy answer, but it didn't used to be. So I got to think of something else because I do think All Monsters Attack is a fantastic kids movie. Like you could show that to a young kid and you would, they'd eat it up. Maybe I haven't tried it yet. I would say Ebirah Horror of the Deep is very underrated. It used to be my least favorite. I will not tell you my least favorite because we're not here to talk about that. But I rewatched it as an adult and I was like, I love Jun Fukuda. And if I butcher the names, I apologize. I love his directing style. I love the surf rock soundtrack. I think it's
the soundtrack is amazing.
They're starting to dance on the dance floor all night and they have the number signs. The story is entertaining and engaging. It's not like a heavy-handed, like super anti-capitalist story, but it's a fun story. These guys, they enter a dance competition, but they also go on a boat to this island, and the red bamboo is there, and they have a giant lobster, and Mothra's there. It's just this crazy.
The way they go from dance competition to like specter of terrorism is just. It's such an extreme jump, but I love it.
It's a lot of fun. I think most people like Son of Godzilla, but I'll shout out Son of Godzilla for just being pretty wholesome. It's cute.
Well, no, I think Ebirah Horror of the Deep is a great one. I watched that movie so much when I was a kid. I'm fairly sure I wore out at least a VHS or two watching it because my girl's in it, of course, right? Even though she spent 90% of the film sleeping, but that's what I aspire to do most of my life anyway, is sleep. So
also put down your pitchforks. Please put down the pitchforks. I really like the first anime trilogy movie. I love Planet of the Monsters.
How dare you? I'm kidding. I actually enjoy it too.
So I love it. I think it's a fun world building. I understand why people don't like it. Haruo drives people nuts, screaming all the time, shaking his fist in the air. Yeah. But the intro where they give the lore, if they had given us that as the second half of the movie and the first half, everything in those prequel books, I think people would have loved it because those prequel books are pretty cool too. Yeah. I don't know if anyone's read through the translations, but those prequel books are pretty rad.
I've not, but I should. No, I still to this day remain adamant about the fact that I think that should have been a series as opposed to like a film trilogy. Yes. I think that there would have been so much more room for expansion in a series, but I know I
totally agree.
time, budget, all of because all things considered, those films were churned out pretty quickly. So,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Here's a fun one.
Okay, let's
Put
do it.
down pitchforks, everyone, just in case. What is
Uh-oh.
your unpopular or controversial Godzilla opinion?
Well, I just said one. Let's think of another one.
Spill that tea.
Spill that tea. So I used to think GMK was overrated, and that upset a lot of people.
It kind of is. I mean, don't get me wrong, everybody. I do love GMK so much. I do love it so much, but I think that it just overshadowed. I think we got so fixated on it that it overshadowed the rest of the Millennium films.
My favorite of the Millennium films is the Kiryu duology, bar none. I think they are phenomenal movies. But here we go. I got it. I'll tell you guys my least favorite Godzilla films: Godzilla 84 and Godzilla 2000.
Ooh. Well, we have to know why now.
Okay, when I say least favorite, I don't dislike really any Godzilla movie. Like, it's just Godzilla, he's my old buddy. I'm just gonna watch it for Godzilla. I find 84 and 2000 to be a little boring. They're a little boring. And I know Raymond Burkhardt, G85. I haven't seen the Raymond Burkhardt in a long time. I probably should. But I did rewatch Godzilla 2000 with the Fathom events. I will say the English cut of 2000 is also better. The Japanese cut has some funky sounds.
Yeah. I think what I fall in love with Godzilla 2000 for are the characters specifically.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that the story is a little boring. Oh, the villain category, stunning villain, phenomenal villain.
I really did like the Storm Chaser aspect. I think that's a phenomenal idea for a Godzilla movie, and I like the father-daughter thing.
Yeah, that was actually related. That was a really good dynamic. Although, I'm gonna probably do a video on this at some point. It's just yet another one of those examples of there's so many instances in the Godzilla franchise where there's a father-daughter, survival relationship, but then the mother has died tragically or something. And we need to unpack that in the Godzilla franchise. Why are moms dying?
Yeah, what's going on with moms? Like Disney parents.
Yes, what is going on? In the Kira duology, Sarah's mom, she horribly tragic. I'm just oh my god, this child needs therapy. So does her dad needs therapy. No, I think that those are completely valid reasons for finding those films to be your to be the ones that you gravitate to the least, right?
Yeah, and I watch a lot of it's weird because I say that I find them boring, but I can watch a 3-hour Kurosawa film or a slow, atmospheric Swedish Ingmar Bergman film. But I could never connect with those two, and I know that people love them, and in a way that's awesome because I can come to people like Donny and go, "Tell me why you love this. Make me understand."
I mean, I don't love them, so I can't.
Somebody.
I can't. Now, if it's a Mothra movie, sign me up. I will
Donny.
I will deliver you a soliloquy, a dissertation,
I'm really sorry, Donny. You're gonna have to tell me why you love Rebirth of Mothra 2. I don't know.
I mean, it's not my favorite Mothra film. It has some significant issues, but the music's great and the kaiju battles are pretty cool. And the extension of the Mew Empire thing, history was kind of interesting, but a little vague. Cool. But I think it pales in comparison to the first and third film. But again, I could write you a dissertation on why I think that is the case. So
I could write a dissertation on why Godzilla versus Gigan is a masterpiece and why Godzilla versus Megalon is a entertainment spectacle masterpiece. But
Yes. No, that is yeah.
so, but it's all
Now I
subjective at the end of the day. What were you saying?
now the one that I struggle with, I always have struggled with Godzilla Raids Again, because I find that's such a boring movie to me. However, Jessica Etchells, who loves Anguirus so much, convinced me to to rewatch it. And I do have a stronger appreciation for Godzilla Raids Again because of that conversation. So it just goes to show you that sometimes you see the films in
Oh,
different ways, depending on who you're speaking
yes,
with. So I
exactly.
guess that is my mission in life. For the legions of people who detest the Mothra trilogy, I will knock on doors and hand out leaflets and be like, hey, come to this symposium I'm holding on why the Mothra trilogy is amazing.
Donny sermon. Now that you bring up Raids Again, though, that might be my pick. If I were to pick another one besides Ebirah, I was rewatching the movies with someone that has never experienced Godzilla until we watched them before. She's my friend, and she actually liked Raids Again more than the
Ooh,
original. I'm not going to tell you who it
really?
is. I'm not going to tell you who it is
Of
because I
course,
don't
yeah.
put down a pitchforks. Put them down. I'll tell you why. She liked the characters more. They were kind of like the airplane
Mm.
pilot. I forgot his name. He was kind of like, hey, let's fly around, He was a little more charming and fun. B, her favorite Godzilla design so far is 55. She loves that look.
That's interesting.
And we're up to Son of Godzilla in our watch.
Okay.
So we still got a
Good
while to go.
momentum. Good
So we're
momentum.
up to Son of Godzilla. But her favorite characters, tone, story has been Raids Again.
I love that. That's such a unique perspective.
We all find ways to love these movies, and some that when I first joined the fandom, Hedera, Megalon, and there's one other movie were the worst. Everyone hated Megalon when I first joined the community. Everybody. And I was like, what? You guys hate Megalon? What? This movie is entertaining, man.
I may have been one of those people. But now I love Godzilla vs. Megalon. No, I think I disliked Godzilla vs. Megalon because everybody loved it so much. But then they were willing to eviscerate other films for like the same flaws. And I'm just like, why are we eviscerating these other films for the same flaws that Godzilla vs. Megalon clearly has? Because it's all about the fun and the nostalgia, though, too. So,
okay. As a filmmaker, Godzilla vs. Megalon is a miracle. From my understanding, they filmed most of it in 2 weeks.
That's insane to me.
It's like, how did it turn out that watchable? I don't know.
Well, see, the reason why I've strengthened my love of Godzilla vs. Megalon is because my headcanon is that the two main characters are actually gay dads taking care of this kid. And we don't know
friends.
That. But,
they're just roommates, Donny. They're just roommates.
But what roommates wear such great clothing all the time? Let's be honest.
That's a piece I've wanted to write on Kaiju United forever. Is the fashion in the 70s era of Godzilla?
Right,
is the most
out of this world, iconic,
incredible,
absolutely iconic.
The turtlenecks that they wear in Megalon, the cars they drive, just that whole era, I love. Even with Tokusatsu, because we're on a Godzilla show right now, but I love Kamen Rider, I love Sentai, I love Ultraman. The 1970s era of Tokusatsu. Look at Kamen Rider, Takashi Hongo. He's got that leather jacket, he's got that nice shaggy hair from the 70s, and when he turns into Kamen Rider, he's got a tracksuit on with his bug helmet. Like, they're always fashionable.
So one of my first, this is gonna be cringy, everybody. Prepare yourselves. One of my first crushes in a Godzilla film
That's a
was
good question for
the
your show.
I know, right? That's for the third guest appearance that people will make. Um, my one of my first crushes was the main character in Godzilla versus Gigan, who's the like misunderstood artist.
The main guy, the manga artist.
Yes.
Pretty
I don't know
handsome
why,
dude.
but when I was like a teenager, I was just like broody but slightly funny artist with shaggy hair wearing a turtleneck. Sign me up. Anyway.
Side note, I love that movie is like G or PG. I can't remember, but in the dub, he totally calls that chick a hard bitch. Like I'm like, whoa, dude, is
I
this movie
know.
like G?
I think that's what makes the 70s era so out of this world too, is because there's just some wild moments that we could do a whole series on, honestly. So I have another interesting question for you.
All right, let's do it.
So if given the power, what Godzilla film would you want to create, or what direction would you take the franchise?
Oh man. Don't give me the keys to the kingdom. I've had a few ideas. One, I'm pretty happy with Takashi Yamazaki's interpretation of Godzilla. I think a lot of us were yearning for something like that. Like like we always say that this one's going back to its roots. But I think for the first time, Minus One did that.
Oh
I
yes,
just,
definitely.
I truly for the first time, because a lot of people said that was Shin Godzilla, and I don't
I
quite
think
agree with
Shin
that.
Godzilla made it contemporary.
That's what I think.
Yes, which I think is valid, but like I
Yeah,
do
it's
agree
totally
with you
valid.
that I think Minus One is the first film that's really taken it back to its roots.
I guess this episode's the Minus One episode. I love that they made it a period piece and took him back to the Showa era because I'm a Showa fanboy. Um, but the stakes were that much higher because all they had were a bunch of random ships and their wits and
Yeah.
wills. They didn't have maser tanks. They didn't have these stealth bombers flying in the sky. They had a bunch of junk ships and they beat Godzilla. And to me, that made the stakes that much higher. I know it's a Godzilla movie and everyone survives in a Godzilla movie. Nobody dies in a Godzilla movie unless they're the bad guys. But
True, yeah.
my first viewing, I really thought people were going to die. Like at the end, I was like, holy cow, like,
Oh, me too.
who's going to make it out of here? But
oh my goodness. So the way you would take the direction would be you would have more like period piece Godzilla.
perhaps as a fan, that's what I'd like to see. As a director, as a person that wants to make movies, I would combine. I'd do something like Godzilla the Ride. Have you seen Godzilla the Ride by the same director of Minus One?
Yeah.
Or something like Kaneko's Gamera trilogy. I want something that has the thrill and the fun of 70s Godzilla movies, but it takes itself a little seriously. Like you can have Jet Jaguar pick up Megalon and throw him into a skyscraper, but what does that really entail?
Yeah, so
I'm not trying to Zack Snyder that shit, but I'm not trying to do that. But you get what I mean?
Yeah. So you want show of fun and Heisei grit.
Yeah, like something that's fun to watch, but it still has a little punch to it. Also, I did have a fan film idea a long time ago where everyone's favorite monster, Bagan, comes back and he wipes out Godzilla. He wipes out Mothra. He puts Rodan off the table. So Earth's defenders are gone. So in a dusty warehouse sits Jet Jaguar, who's been sitting there since 1973, and they boot him up to save the day.
Nobody take that idea. You write that? That's a great idea.
And maybe, Gorosaurus and Titanosaurus help him out because he needs some friends, and I want to see those two come back.
They should come back. They deserve to come
That's
back.
that's another thing I want to see. I get that we have the big five, but there's a plethora of Godzilla characters that they could use.
I want to see Varen again. Like, we only get like we got like one film, and then we got like a cameo in Destroy All Monsters, and then an appearance in Godzilla Unleashed, the video game. Like, we need more Varen.
Titanosaurus. Even Anguirus. Like, I'm a Baragon fanboy. Baragon's my favorite. I will always love Baragon. Baragon got the limelight in GMK, and I'm happy for that.
Yes.
We are so overdue for Anguirus. So overdue.
And you know what? Damn it. Toho, if you're listening, please bring back Biollante.
Oh, that'd be good. People are begging.
Biollante, Godzilla vs. Biollante is like a cult classic now. It may not have been successful in '89, but it is a cult classic now.
I would say it's more than that, because, like, if you read the description on events like Kaiju Go, they're all calling it like one of the greatest. A lot of people are really coming to the point with Biollante that they think it's one of the greatest Godzilla films ever. I won't tell you if I agree or disagree with that, because doesn't matter. The point is, people love that movie.
I'm biased. That's one of my favorites, so I will say I agree.
Totally fine. I like that I can cosplay as the Seradian agent, because he kind of looks like me.
You could. And then I'll cosplay as Mickey Sakusa.
Okay. And I love the Bio Wars track where it's, got that roaring guitar. It's just
oh my god, the soundtrack was so amazing of that film. So speaking of scenes and stuff like that, which scene in a Godzilla film shook your younger self, and does it still have the same impact on you today?
Man, that's hard, because I grew up watching the fun stuff, so I might take shook in a different way, because when I rewatched 54 as a 25-year-old, the scene where she's hugging her kids and going, "Daddy will be with us soon," that was like, oh my god. But as a kid, probably the scene where he flies in Hedorah. When I watched Hedorah for the first time, I was like, dude, Godzilla can fly. I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. That is so cool. So then my Godzilla figure, I'd go and make him fly with like my Superman toy or something. Like, yeah, Godzilla's got superpowers now, dude. I was like, he can do anything. He's magnetic in Mechagodzilla. He can fly. He can slide on his tail. And it made playing with my figures as a kid that much cooler.
That's a good one. I think the scene that shook me the most, it doesn't shake me anymore, but like it was like late 90s. Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla was on TV, and I got to see this, like, when they were providing their explanation of Space Godzilla, you see like the stock footage callbacks to like Godzilla vs. Biollante and Mothra. Had never seen Godzilla vs. Mothra, and then I saw that scene, and I was like, there is
what movie is that?
I was like, there is a Mothra film. But yeah, that shook me a lot.
That's pretty good. That's a good one. A scene that baffles me to this day is the Megaguirus body slam. And I'm one of the few lovers of Megaguirus. I think Megaguirus is really fun. Me too.
That's one of the films that's really grown on me.
I think it's a fun horror movie, and then Godzilla shows up, and it's just fun. It's like a Showa film done now. Or not now. It was 20 years ago. Wow.
Oh my god, 20 years ago.
Sorry. Final Wars this year will turn 20. Megaguirus is like 24 years old.
I'm decaying right now, live on camera.
So two scenes that still baffle me a little bit. The body slam in Megaguirus, and some of the stuff they got away with in Final Wars with Don Fry.
Yeah. A lot of the stuff they get away with Don Fry baffles me. In fact, I'm just surprised they got away with that film in general.
I've met Don. He's fun to drink beer with at G Fest, but there's a couple of scenes in there where I'm like, whoa. Okay.
I think I need to rewatch the film. It's time. It's been a while for me.
Good. Do it for the 20th anniversary.
So I have one final question for you.
Oh, we're already there, huh?
Yes, we are. It's hard to believe. So a person wants to get their friends into Godzilla. What advice do you have for how they should start?
Okay, so like I said earlier, I'm a film guy first and foremost. I grew up watching Godzilla, but then I kind of got away from Godzilla and I went deep diving into French, Swedish, Japanese, all kinds of movies, The first thing I would say is, what kind of other movies do you like? Do you like fun, lighthearted Marvel movies? Okay, then you should watch these. Do you like artistic world cinema with deep messages and thought-provoking imagery and cinematography and the cinema? Then you should watch 54 Shin and Minus One. If you like ridiculous movies from the 2000s with Limp Bizkit soundtracks like I do, you should watch Final Wars. So I do it like that, but I'll also pick, there's a short list of 5 movies I think every fan should watch. My number 1 pick is Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. Everyone says the original. The original is kind of a risk because it's a great movie, but you do the original and then you want to show a Megalon. It's cool to show them the
drastic vibe change.
It's cool to show them the journey of these movies, but most of the Godzilla movies, tonally, to get them ready for the majority of them, Ghidorah is very safe. It's very safe. It's monster mashy with that anti-capitalist message. You got Mothra, Rodan, Ghidorah, Godzilla. You got the major players. So that's my number 1 pick. Some of the others would be Gigan, Godzilla X Mechagodzilla from 2002. It's phenomenal. Sorry, I know the original Mechagodzilla is fun. It's got the saxophones.
Kiryu Saga all the way.
Kiryu Saga, because it's got a great story. You got a character to root for, and it's just a very engaging tokusatsu production. I love it.
Those 2 movies do so much world building and connection with prior Showa films, and I think that's what also makes them so good.
Oh my gosh, the continuity Tokyo SOS has with the original Mothra is insane.
I know.
Go ahead.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
So I grew up watching Tokyo SOS, but I hadn't seen the original Mothra until I was about 20. I know. It took me a while.
Nothing wrong with that.
That's partially because, side note, that I grew up going, Mothra's girly, but now I'm an adult. I'm like, dude, Mothra's kind of badass. I'm like,
absolutely.
So that's part of it. That's a whole different conversation.
A great conversation we can definitely have in the future, because I think it's worth having 100%.
Totally. But I watched Tokyo SOS again after watching Mothra, and I was like, oh my gosh. Every photo he takes in the original film is one of the printouts. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. The amount of love that Masaki Tezuka, I believe his name is, the director of the Kiryu movies and Megaguirus, he's a fan. And sometimes fans making movies is a bad idea, because if you want a new, fresh take, a fan ain't going to give that to you. I'm really sorry to say that.
Right.
But sometimes it works, because Takashi Yamazaki is a Godzilla fan. Masaki Tezuka is a Godzilla fan. So...
And now we have these wonderful films that celebrate the franchise in so many different ways. I think those are some good recommendations. Now, where can people find your stuff?
Okay, plug away. Here we go. So I am the editor-in-chief of KaijuUnited.com. I guess that's the title I give myself, but I'm kind of the everyman. Um, yeah, I facilitate content. I'm the editor in chief. Most of the time, if you're talking to KU, you're going to talk to me.
Mhm.
But you can find us on kaijuunited.com. You can find Kaiju United on almost every social media imaginable. Major social medias. I don't really need a Mastodon or something, but
Oh, I forget that exists.
do you remember Mastodon? How about
Uh,
Bluesky? Anyways, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, X, whatever Elon Musk wants to call it.
I still call it
Because
Twitter.
there's still an active kaiju community on Twitter. We don't forget about you.
Yeah.
We're on Instagram. We have a Facebook group for the community to just post stuff. You can find us pretty much anywhere. You
A
can find me
YouTube
on
channel.
social media. We do have a YouTube channel. We post panels there. This year, we'll start to really develop that YouTube channel and do something with it because I feel like that's our biggest miss so far. So look out for that. And then you can find me pretty much on socials. I'm a pretty open guy. You can add me on Facebook or follow me on Instagram. It's cool. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, you found me.
Jacob, this has been such a great conversation. And I am so grateful for our friendship. I hope you know that. And anytime we get a chance to sit down and have a conversation, I always leave it feeling a sense of rejuvenation.
I appreciate that. That's great. Donny's been incredible giving us poems to publish on Kaiju United.
Mm-hmm.
Donny's one of my favorite human beings. I'm going to just praise Donny while he's right here in the room with us
I'm
over
gonna
here.
sob right now.
Really happy you're going to G-Fest, as you said in the intro. This is going to be a great reunion.
It's going to be fun, and
I
honestly,
think this year is going to be crazy. I don't know if you guys saw the news, but as of this recording date, the 27th of January, spoilers, the G-Fest Hotel has sold out. The Hyatt is gone. So
yeah,
we got Minus One, we got Godzilla X Kong, we got Monarch. It's going to be a crazy, crazy, crazy festivity. And then I know a lot of people are cynical and say that it's dumb that people say it's the best time to be a fan.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
We are in another
Everything's
golden
accessible.
age.
There's so much stuff out there. There's something for everybody. Just find what you love and preach to the choir why you love it so much. People like positivity. So I guess that's my closing message.
No, that was the perfect closing message. So, my friends, don't forget that Growing Up with Godzilla premieres on the first and third Sunday, relatively, of each month at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Keep standing tall, Godzilla fans, and we will see you on the flip side. Bye.